we talk a lot about the invisible makers in the manufacturing industry as well, and we all know some of the terrible things that have happened within the industry. And I think, again, in terms of lockdown, people are starting, within both of our projects, we made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of PPE garments, and that helped to sort of really enable people to understand actually what goes on behind the making of everything that we wear. And again, you know, who made your clothes, and sort of the precipitation of so many stories and narratives around that. And it is about equating the quality and what that means in terms of quality and quality of, you know, the individual that has made that. And I think, again, it's not just about educating for us, the manufacturers, and enabling them to think differently and change, be a bit more flexible in their approach and actually recognise the makers, but also educating society really in terms of how much has gone into your clothes from a high-end craft level, but just essentially on a making level, that knowledge and experience and everything that goes into that has to equate to, you know, sort of, you know, a value. And one of the things that our women talk about quite often is they'll say, they can take away my home, they'll take away my job, even I've lost my children and everything else, but they can never take away this skill that I've learned. And that skill is so valuable to them. And again, in terms of connecting and family relationships, etc., we have in the prison project, we have something called an incentive day, where we have lots and lots of old scraps of material that have perhaps come from the production. So we use up all of those. And we have this incentive day where the women can make little purses, makeup bags, wash bags, just lots and lots of really small items. Can you imagine putting those in the post to their family, particularly around Christmas time, particularly around those incentive days? It doesn't cost much, but for them, again, that value. So it's putting that value on all of those things in a myriad of different ways that enables, but, you know, particularly, as I said, and we all are aware of this, it's society's perceptions, around prisoners or ex-offenders, changing those perceptions, and also be around the industry and craft industry, manufacturing, making industry, all of those things. It's just sort of being able to shift that perspective to place a different value on it. And I do think that the lockdown has enabled that change to start to happen.
I want to share with everybody. So the prison sewing department, they were actually sewing that what the frontliners were wearing, that was all made in prison. That's the wonderful thing. Yeah. So I would come in, and when I saw them there, I would think, can you give me one? So I'll walk out with it. Yeah. But the prison, every prison was doing that for the whole country, for the frontliners to wear.
And I think that's really unifying, isn't it? Because if you are in prison and you're making that, you are part of the push to get your country through what's happening. And I think we saw that in a lot of the work that came in 2020 and 2021 into the Koestler Awards, with people making work about the lockdown and COVID and thanking kind of people who are working in hospitals, frontline staff, where they'd been making stuff that were, you know, making masks and things like that. They felt like they were part of the process. They were relevant, and I think sometimes if you don't feel like that, if you feel very separate, and I think there was that real opportunity during lockdown when it was horrendous for people in prison in the UK, that they did feel there was a common cause that they were kind of doing it for. We saw that in a lot of the artwork that came in that I found incredibly moving. So that's a kind of really, like you say, you don't like to think there's been many positives that's come out of that, but I do think that there was a sense of people kind of unifying a little bit behind some of some of those things. Something else I wanted to touch upon is a lot of the time when we're working in the UK systems, we're being asked by the government to provide evidence as to what we're doing being valuable, working. They want to know, how does it work? How does it stop the person that you've worked with from reoffending? And one of the things that, it's very difficult to just say, this person did some embroidery and therefore they're not going to reoffend, because it's just too simple. It doesn't really work like that. One of the things that when I first started my work at Koestler sort of 12 years ago that we really bought into, and I still really buy into today, is the theory of change, which is that you're making steps in someone's journey that will help them see themselves differently. And one of the biggest things about that is identity. And when somebody can begin seeing themselves as something other than a prisoner, that's part of the journey to not wanting to go back to being a prisoner or not wanting to go back to being the criminal. So a lot of that can be with family work, so it could be seeing yourself as a mum again or as a partner. It could be doing with getting a job, so seeing yourself as an employee somewhere or as a manager somewhere. But quite often around the arts, because it's a skill set, and I think, Claire, it's something you were saying about you can take everything else away from someone, but you can't take a skill once it's learned. And that is that identity that they will never lose again. And that's so powerful with the identity. And I was just thinking, Your Majesty, about how the people that you're working with, how do they refer to themselves? Are they craftsmen? Is that something that you see is very important, is how they redefine themselves, I guess?
That part, I really don't know. But I find that, they take great pride when, to be able to come out to work with me, to be seen with me. But the government has also been, I think they noticed the work that I've been going in and out of prison. And in the last 2 or 3 national budgets, they've started increasing budgets for the prisons to increase the prison skill and workshops as well. So I see, I don't know whether I played a role there, but sometimes when I see the Prime Minister, I say, come on, we need some more money. The finest example was this prison from Sarawak. So the Chief Minister's wife came to have lunch to invite me to a fashion show. And at that lunchtime, the prison board happened to be there to see the king. So then I asked across the table, I said, are you doing anything in the prison in Sarawak? They said, they couldn't answer me. So I look at this is the wife of the big chief there, the chief minister's wife. I said, I think we can start weaving in the prison. You just give me like 50 to 100,000 to them because they need to buy the looms, everything. You just give it to them, then they'll start weaving. They can produce beautiful pieces of Songket Sarawak for you. How much did the government give them? 7 million. I only asked for 50,000. So this is where the royal patronage comes in. This is where you command, you order, you demand, that's it. You use whatever. But it's for the benefit of these people. It's for when they come out, the skills that they've learned as well, and they get paid. I mean, I come into prison, when I come in, I see that the smile on their face, welcome me in, and at the top where there was, welcome in, And before I leave, that wink that I want some food, as I told you just now, the wink that I get, that I understand the message. Okay, I'll send you the food. But we have a duty to make them feel welcome, to make, forget whatever offense. Don't ask, but accept them as they are. That's our duty. And this is where they all come in as well, right? Thank you very much for all the rehab. It's about rehab. As you say just now, it's about rehab. You go into prison, your brain, you're just sitting in the cell, it becomes redundant, stagnant, whatever you call it, right? But weaving, your brain cell starts to work again. So it's sort of like stopping dementia and whatever, everything as well. Yeah. So I bring them books as well in. If they come, I will say, we can't think anymore about design. Refer to those books. So it's all about encouraging them as well. Thank you. Prison.
No, thank you so much. We've got sort of 10 minutes or so left, and I was thinking it might be really interesting to think about not what we expect the future to look like in this sort of area, but what we would hope the future could look like, what we want. Because I think sometimes, because especially working in UK prisons, what we want is never what we actually ask for, because we know that that's not going to be 7 million, but it's going to be maybe just being allowed in to speak to somebody. So if we were to talk about what we hope for, it might be very small, but what would we ideally think would help us sort of move it forward? You know, with all of our experiences of being in prisons, what would be the thing that could make a big difference for you?
Speed of change. And that's what I'm so impressed by what has been achieved by your royal patroness. I cannot tell you how long it takes to set up and build the dynamics of programs in prison. It takes a great deal of time. And I think if there was, I think there is a will. I just think it's just a very, very, very long, slow process in this country. And I think that's sad, because I think in a lot of dynamism, a lot of energy, a lot of people who would have keen from the beginning really struggle with this very, very long lead-in time. And I think that what your royal patronage is doing, and it'd be interesting to see whether Prince Charles was ever able to do that in this country, is it just gives it a speed, and all of these cautions that we have just don't necessarily apply. We're, in most cases, dealing with organisations that are well-versed in working in prison. So for me, I think if they could just speed the whole thing up.
When I first became queen, I remember that. And these people came to see me about the dress that I'm going to wear. So I told my husband I'm going to prison. He says, but you're queen now. I don't think they allow you to go to prison, the protocol. I said, that's my work in there. Nobody can stop me there. I'm going, and whether you like it or not, I'm going back. That's my work. And I've been doing that my monthly visit. That's it.
So thank you so much for being such an attentive audience. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to the conversation today. Thank you, Your Majesty, for sharing so much of your work. I'm going to go back for a third time that we have so much to learn, I think, in the UK about how we champion what we do on a national scale. So thank you very much indeed.